A brutal murder that shocked Copenhagen happened in the fall. The victim was the mother of an autistic child named Laura. Laura worked as a dental nurse at a dental clinic. At that time, a neighbor heard a dog barking near a park. The victim was found not far away, so he immediately called the police. Detective Naya was in charge of the case. Naya first checked Laura's place of residence, but she found no signs of a fight. Simon from the trace identification team also came to check and analyze. The time of death was last night. Perhaps the murderer knocked Laura out at home and then moved here. From the wounds on Laura's body, it could be judged that she had suffered the most brutal torture before she died. In addition, one of her severed hands had not been found. Last night's rain had washed everything away, making it more difficult to collect traces. Moreover, a train not far away had passed by here all night. The people lived far away, so no one heard any screams. Naya carefully observed everything around her and suddenly saw something strange not far away. Mark, who was temporarily assigned, said it looked like a little person made of chestnuts, so Naya asked Simon to bring it back for examination. She took Mark to Laura's house to investigate other clues. Coincidentally, there was a fight outside. It turned out that Hans, Laura's new boyfriend, wanted to see her. Naya brought Hans over and asked him how he knew Laura and when was the last time he saw Laura. According to Hans's description, Laura's husband died of cancer a few years ago. He met and dated her online. The last time Hans saw Laura was yesterday morning. At that time, he did not see anything unusual. Mark was checking the locks and found that all the locks in the house had been replaced. He found the lock replacement service in the drawer. The lock replacement time was around 3 p.m. yesterday. Mark asked Hans why he needed to replace the lock. Hans hesitated and then said he didn't know. Hans then said that Laura's son was autistic. He often lost the keys to the house. Maybe that was why Laura changed the locks. After a series of questions, Naya didn't get any useful clues from Hans. But Hans didn't have an alibi, so she asked everyone to collect Hans's fingerprints and DNA. It was obvious that Naya was suspicious of Hans. After Naya returned to the police station, she went to see the forensic doctor. The forensic doctor said that after an autopsy, Laura had more than 50 wounds. The fatal wound was above her eye. The murder weapon was probably a particle accumulator. Her hand had been amputated before she died. Naya asked if Laura's boyfriend's DNA was at the scene. The forensic doctor said no. At the same time, Simon from the fingerprint identification department called Naya and said that there was a big discovery. So Naya and Mark rushed over. Simon said that in order to collect fingerprints, he had searched the entire park, including the Chestnut man he brought back. Although no fingerprints were found elsewhere, fingerprints were found on the Chestnut man. After testing and comparing, they matched the fingerprints of a little girl named Christine. But what was suspicious was that the girl was murdered a year ago. Her mother, Rosa, was now the Minister of Internal Affairs. This case was a hot topic at the time. Christine had been missing for many days. After a search by senior police officers, the suspect was finally found. According to his testimony, he used a knife to dismember the body and buried it. The police also found the girl's blood and DNA on the murder weapon. Because the suspect had a history of mental illness, he could not remember where the body was buried. However, he admitted to the crime and had solid evidence, so he was brought to court. Naya wondered why the dead man's fingerprints appeared here. Was there any connection between the two cases? Naya wanted to talk to the girl's family, but unexpectedly, she was stopped by her superiors. He said that all the children here knew how to be a nut. At the same time, the fingerprints would be retained for a long time. Perhaps it was just a coincidence. Meanwhile, Minister of the Interior Rosa had just overcome the pain of losing her daughter. Today was her first day back to work. The whole society was paying great attention to Rosa's return. Even the Prime Minister personally invited her and encouraged her to return to work as soon as possible. Naya's superiors didn't want any trouble at this time. After hanging up, Naya told Mark that they might have to postpone it for a while. So the next day, they went to see Rosa's husband. They said they found something with his daughter's fingerprints at the crime scene. Then they showed him the picture of the nut man. The man asked what happened. Naya told him the whole story. She emphasized that it had nothing to do with his daughter's case. She just wanted to know about the nut man. Coincidentally, Rosa hadn't gone out yet, so she heard everything. She came out and said that her daughter was playing with her friends at the time. They set up a stall outside to sell the nut men they made. Naya asked Rosa if she knew who bought them. Rosa said it could be anyone. Naya saw that Rose was in a bad mood, so she quickly took Mark away. Obviously, this brought back painful memories for Rosa and her husband. Naya was scolded by her superior. He told Naya not to bother Rosa anymore. At that time, Naya also believed that it was just a coincidence. Mark, when he returned home, did not think so. He was temporarily transferred and he was supposed to leave in a few days. But because of the case, he was forced to postpone his transfer. He and Naya went to see Laura's autistic son. Naya tried to communicate with the boy, but the boy ignored her. Mark saw this and walked over and said he wanted to play a game with him. The boy agreed. Mark showed the photo of the crime scene to the boy and asked him to find the differences. He often went to the park, so he would definitely know how long the things in the photo had been there. After comparing each photo, he quickly pointed to the photo of the Chestnut Man. The Chestnut Man was deliberately placed there by the murderer at the time of the crime, but Naya did not want to abandon this case. She wanted to ruin the case that Christine had already closed, because doing so would not only increase the difficulty but also cause the superiors to disagree. That was why Mark turned around and left. 2 days later, Naya focused on Hans, Laura's new boyfriend. Naya asked Hans why Laura changed the lock without telling him. Was there a dispute between them? Hans said he had explained that Laura's son often lost his keys, so she changed the lock. But Naya was not satisfied with this answer. She made her own deduction. Did Hans and Laura ask for a breakup? He was afraid that he would not see her again and lost control. That's why she sawed off her arm. Hans firmly said he didn't do it. His lawyer also said that without solid evidence, she shouldn't make baseless guesses. Naya said she had one last question. Naya showed Hans the picture of the Chestnut Man and asked him if he had ever seen it. Hans glanced at it and said he hadn't. Mark was investigating alone at the moment. It seemed like there was a new discovery. Mark met Naya again and said that a friend who had researched Christine's case had discovered something suspicious. Naya was a little confused. Then Mark asked Simon to help him carry something. After opening the box, it turned out to be a pig. After Mark hung the pig up, he took out a knife identical to the one used in Christine's case. Then he cut off the pig's leg. Then he washed the knife again. He put it under a microscope and said that the density and hardness of the pig's bones were equivalent to that of a 12-year-old child. When the knife cut into the bone, the tiny particles in the bone would be stuck in the gaps of the X-ray machine. This was something that could not be cleaned unless you wiped it hard. But on the murder weapon in Christine's case, there were only blood stains and known fragments. This was the strange point. Naya thought that maybe little Christine had not been dismembered. Moreover, the murderer was mentally ill. But Mark believed that the two cases were definitely related. He even wondered how the murderer could forget where the body was buried. Moreover, the appearance of the Chestnut Man was clearly intentional. At that moment, a colleague came and said that someone had sent a text message to Laura's phone. When they opened the message, it was a children's song about Chestnut Man. Coincidentally, the phone number that sent the text message was a local number, so Naya immediately ordered someone to find the phone number. They then quickly set out to catch the man at the mall. Naya asked him why he sent a message to Laura's phone, but he said he didn't know Laura. Mark opened his backpack and found a package with Laura's sender's name. Mark asked him why he had Laura's things. He said he didn't understand why he received this and hadn't opened it yet. Mark didn't care about right or wrong and immediately opened the package. However, something terrible fell out. It was Laura's severed hand. Mark warned the man to think carefully about whether he knew Laura or not. But Naya saw his family photo and realized something was wrong. She quickly asked the man where his wife was. He said she was probably at home. When they arrived at his house, there were signs of a struggle in the room, and the woman was gone. What was strange was that Naya found a small chestnut person on the table. Mark quickly sent someone with a police dog. They started searching in the nearby woods. Suddenly, Naya saw something that looked like a shadow in the distance, so she quickly called Mark over. When they got closer to check, they found that the woman was dead. Her body was hanging from a tree, and both hands were missing. Within a few days, a horrific murder case had occurred. This case had even alarmed the superiors. He ordered his staff to conduct a thorough search of the nearby suspicious places. Simon from the fingerprint identification department brought the Chestnut Man back from the crime scene. After testing, he found that it also had Christine's fingerprints, so the police quickly held a meeting to analyze it. Naya said that both victims were in their 30s. They were all attacked at home. The preliminary investigation showed that they were both killed by force. The murder weapon penetrated the eye and brain, causing direct death. Simon said that the severed left arm of the first victim and the two severed arms of the second victim probably came from the same electric saw. Naya continued to say that the murderer sent Laura's arm to the second victim's husband under the name Laura. Originally, Laura's new boyfriend, Hans, was suspected of being involved, but when this case happened, he was with his lawyer. The two victims did not know each other and were not even related at all. Everyone said, "Is there any other clue?" Simon added, "The Chestnut Man was found at both crime scenes. Both had Christine's fingerprints." Hearing this, the others immediately said that it was impossible. Even the superior came out and said that these two cases could not possibly be related to Christine's case. At that time, he brought most of the people in the department to investigate. If there was a problem with Christine's case, it would definitely be a slap in the face for most people. Mark was an outsider, so he didn't care. He had once declared that he would reinvestigate Christine's case, but he was criticized by those present. Finally, his superiors warned Mark not to speculate without convincing evidence, but Mark insisted that the two cases were definitely related. In order not to provoke their their superiors, they had to secretly search for useful evidence. Then they met Eric, the husband of the second victim. Mark asked about the dried blood found in his house. Where did the blood come from? Eric replied that it was his daughter Sophia's. She had broken her nose a few months ago, and they took her to the hospital. Naya asked which hospital. Eric replied that it was the Central Hospital. Naya remembered that Laura's son seemed to have been examined there. So Naya and Mark decided to go to the Central Hospital to investigate. They arrived at the Central Hospital. A year ago, Laura's autistic son had been examined here. A few months ago, Sophia also fell and was hospitalized. Mark asked the doctor if the two children or their parents knew each other. The doctor said they had never met. Mark asked who sent the children here. The doctor replied that it was the children's mother. Naya said that there were so many children. Why did he remember these two families so clearly? The doctor replied that it was probably because he had a good memory, but Naya was not satisfied with this answer. She took out the photos of the two victims and told the doctor that they were murdered and that he should answer seriously. The doctor then started saying that he was closest to Laura. Her son had been examined here for a long time, but then they suddenly stopped coming. Someone reported Laura and her son to social services. Mark asked why. The doctor replied that he had only heard from other mothers. Laura was reported for neglecting her son. Naya asked if he knew who reported her. The doctor replied that it was an anonymous report, but in his impression, Laura was a very loving mother. So Mark went to get the report letter from social services. The letter said that Laura was a selfish mother. Her son should be taken away by social services, and the evidence was in her house. Naya and Mark hurried to Laura's house. When they arrived, they decided to split into two groups. Mark went to check the house for clues. Naya asked the neighbors if they knew about Laura's report. Laura's house had been basically cleaned up. Mark decided to go check out the small warehouse nearby. The noise under his feet indicated that there was an underground passage below. When Mark opened it, it seemed like there was an underground basement. He slowly walked in. When he saw this dark room, he quickly opened his phone to record a video. The items showed that someone had lived here regularly. Could it be that Laura's autistic son had lived here? There seemed to be a camera next to the bed. While Mark was carefully recording, someone suddenly attacked him. Naya also came from outside and called Mark's name. The man panicked, picked up the notebook, and ran away. After climbing up, he used a heavy object to block Mark below. Fortunately, Naya arrived in time. It turned out to be Laura's new boyfriend, Hans. Mark quickly pulled out his gun and fired a few shots. Naya heard the noise on the floor. She pointed at Hans and ordered him to quickly move the things away. Then Hans moved the furniture. At the moment, Laura was off guard. He left an important notebook behind. Soon after, the police came to seal the place. The superiors also came to ask what happened to Naya. The staff who inspected the scene said that the entire room, including the entrance, was soundproof. Moreover, it was the first time they saw a room built under the stove. Simon said that he had collected the traces. He would check who had been there later. At this time, the technician also turned on the computer. Everyone rushed to check. It seemed that there were some videos in it. After they opened it, they were surprised to see Laura's son in the basement. A man was seducing the boy. He was obviously a pervert. This voice belonged to Hans. Naya then told Mark that Laura might have discovered Hans's behavior, so she changed all the locks in the house. Mark said that Hans's perverted behavior made people want to kill him. But why did the murderer kill Laura? Naya said that maybe he felt that Laura was not a good mother. Suppose Laura's family was in this situation. What about Eric's family? Naya quickly asked someone to get the medical records of Sophia, Eric's daughter. They went to see Eric again. Mark said that the x-ray showed that Sophia was not injured by a normal fall. Naya said that it was not an accident. Mark added that the police would investigate him for child abuse. He would not be able to see his daughter anymore. Eric seemed hesitant. Then he said that he loved his daughter very much. Naya only asked his wife. She also knew about this. Eric looked at the family photo and said that because of this, he was reported by someone else, but he had already found someone to handle it. Mark said that he could not find the complaint letter against Eric's family in the social services department. Naya asked if he knew who it was. Eric said he didn't know because it was anonymous. It seemed that the two cases had something in common. They were both anonymous reports. The next day, Mark and Naya went to social services. They got the contents of the report. The words inside were the same. It was anger at the mother's irresponsibility. Naya said that if killer had reported the two murdered women, he would most likely report the next victims. Mark immediately asked the service department to get anonymous reports of child neglect and abuse from the past year. The two of them then went through it all night. There were 5 anonymous reports similar to these two cases. The families all seemed to be in trouble. 2 of them stood out. They had good writing and wording, with nothing to complain about. Mark asked which one was the best. Jessie. Jessie is a 20-year-old single mother with a 6-year-old daughter, Ollie. The report states that she is often drunk, even in the presence of her daughter. Neighbors also complain that she plays music late into the night. They will assume that the next target is likely Jessie. Jessie is standing in the tunnel on her way to her daughter's dance class. She feels like someone is following her. Jessie panics and runs away, but by chance, she meets Mark and Naya, who come looking for her. After Mark takes Jessie to the police station, he asks her if she knows who reported her to social services, or if she has felt like someone has been following her lately. Jessie says she doesn't know who reported her. It could be a neighbor or someone at her daughter's school, but she just felt like someone was following her, or maybe she's just imagining it. Then, Jessie said she didn't like dealing with police. She felt uncomfortable. Mark helplessly said that this was very dangerous. Maybe she would need some special protection measures. Then Mark went to see his superiors. His superiors asked him if he had found the wrong person. Mark said that according to the verification, Jessie was probably the best candidate, and Jessie also said that she seemed to be being followed. So the police sent a large number of personnel to monitor and protect Jessie. Mark was also nearby watching Jessie's every move. Under this close surveillance, if the murderer really attacked Jessie, they might be able to catch him. When Jessie entered the house, it turned out to be Naya in disguise. To avoid Jessie's danger, they moved her to a safe place. When Naya was hiding in the house at night, Jessie contacted Mark to ask if he had seen anyone suspicious outside. Mark said he hadn't seen anyone yet. Naya said they weren't sure if the murderer would show up today, or is it really targeting Jessie? Mark said that this is the only way at the moment. At the same time, a colleague's voice rang out from the walkie-talkie. A strange man in a hooded sweatshirt sneaked in. Everyone immediately raised their guard. It seemed that this stranger had discovered something. He turned around and went to Jessie's door and knocked loudly. Then the police immediately arrested him. Mark asked who he was. He said someone had sent him a message saying that Jessie was looking for him. He was married, but still had an ambiguous relationship with Jessie. Mark said the message was sent half an hour ago by a junk sim. Maybe someone found out about their plan. Jessie was staying in a villa with Naya's colleague. Jessie asked where the other person had gone. Jack said he was going to buy pizza. Suddenly a car horn sounded outside. Jack told Jessie to hide quickly while he ran outside. On the other side, Naya and the others rushed over. After waiting for a while, Jessie still hadn't seen Jack come back, so she slowly walked out. When she turned around, she saw that the door was suddenly locked. Jessie quickly ran to open the door. Then she screamed for her sleeping daughter, but no one answered. When Mark and the others arrived, they only found the girl in the room. Colleague had an accident outside. Mark and Naya rushed out to look for Jessie. Then they found her hanging not far away. Her hands and one of her feet were gone. Naya then went to Mark's place. He was drowning in great self-blame. The bedroom was full of noses about the case. Naya said that the other party knew they would borrow that villa. Maybe he knew the plan in advance. The suspicious thing was how he knew. Mark said they needed to talk to Rosa. Every case revolved around her now, or maybe it had been that way from the beginning. He also said he had found footage at the scene after Christine disappeared. He played the footage that showed only a tiny chestnut man at the crime scene. Naya watched it and said she wanted to talk to her superiors. They went to see the boss. Unexpectedly, he suddenly agreed. He said he had looked for Rosa before. Rosa said she had received some threats. He asked Naya and Mark to bring a report from the intelligence department. Now the series of murders had made the media suspicious of criminals and the local police. As Minister of Internal Affairs, Rosa was under even more pressure. Naya and Mark happened to come. Rosa told the counselor that she had to meet them first. Naya showed Rosa pictures of the victims and asked if she knew anyone in them. Rosa said she had seen the pictures in the media, but had never met them in person. Mark said that cases seemed to point to her, the Minister of Internal Affairs. He suspected that the main target of killer was her. Naya also said that the killer was probably the person who had recently threatened her. Mark asked Rosa to think carefully about whether she had ever had any conflicts or arguments with anyone. Rosa said that she had no personal enemies. She wondered if she had offended anyone in her work. She had recently advocated helping abused children. In other words, finding new guardians for the children. Perhaps some parents felt betrayed. Naya asked if there were any specific cases. Rosa said that she did not remember, but would have her personal assistant check. Naya asked if the chestnut person had any meaning. Rosa said that her daughter liked to make it. She was not sure either. Mark said that the Sparrow Man was like a strange card. It seemed that person knew her or wanted to tell her something. Had she ever seen or met any strange people in her life or when she was young? Rosa said she couldn't remember. Naya and Mark were helpless, so they could only leave temporarily. There were many reporters outside at this time. They were all targeting the woman who had just returned to work. After Rosa got in the car, she told the driver to wait for her. Her driver quietly went to a corner to make a phone call. When they returned, Mark watched the video of Christine's case. He said there would definitely be a connection. Naya saw that Mark seemed to be in a state of anxiety, so she told him to go rest. She would analyze it herself. Naya watched it many times. She saw the murderer in Christine's case in the video. They hurried to see Simon to verify verify. In his confession, the killer confirmed that the time of the girl's murder coincided with the time the video was filmed. This was a bit unusual. Why was he in the video when the crime happened? Obviously, he lied. Naya and Mark decided to meet the criminal. They went to the prison. The doctor in charge told them that he was mentally ill. When they met the man, Naya showed him a photo of herself. They asked him where he was standing when the crime happened. How could he attack Christine? He was definitely mentally ill. He claimed from the beginning that he was innocent, so why should he confess? Naya and Mark were confused for a moment. He said, "I know why they came to see you. Because of the Chestnut man, right?" Mark asked how he knew. The man said he knew everything. He asked Mark, "Where did that guy put the Chestnut man? Did the Chestnut man have wings?" When they found the bloody knife in his garage, he knew he had been picked on. It must have been part of the man's plan. Naya asked him who the man was. The man didn't answer. When Mark turned around, he said the criminal had hacked into the police department's record system. While investigating Christine's case, they must have met killer. They needed to find out what cases he was interested in initially. Naya got a text message from Rosa's personal assistant who had provided a lead that suggested the killer was the culprit. Naya and Mark rushed over. The staff there said that under the recent child resettlement law that Rosa had championed, the children of women with postpartum psychosis were given to other people to raise, but the child later died of pneumonia. The woman was discharged from the psychiatric hospital this spring and worked as a pediatric nurse at the central hospital. She and her boyfriend lived there. Everything here showed that this woman had not forgotten her child. When Naya entered, the wall was covered with information about Rosa. The staff said that the woman left the hospital at 2 p.m. and had not returned. Information about her boyfriend was still not found. The superiors analyzed that she had threatened Rosa and killed those women. Moreover, she was a pediatric nurse, so she had obviously met the two victims. Soon after, a portrait of the woman was sent to Rosa. Rosa confirmed that she had caused a disturbance because of the child, but it was not certain that she had caused the current murder. At the same time, Rosa's assistant had found out who her boyfriend was. Rosa quickly called her husband to ask if their son was home. Her husband said that the driver had picked up their son to play tennis. He couldn't let his son drive alone. Then he asked Rosa what had happened. Rosa said that her driver was probably a suspect in the recent murder. Rosa broke down and cried as she spoke. At this point, Rosa's son still didn't know what had happened. The police searched all night but couldn't find the woman and Rosa's driver. Naya told Rosa and her husband that the police had set up checkpoints on major roads and bridges and had issued a warrant for the car. Even if they were to hide, they would use various methods to find them. Special operations teams were also on standby. They had no way out, so they drove into the woods. The driver told the woman that they shouldn't kidnap Rosa's child, or they could give her the baby. At first, they said they only let her experience their feelings at that time, but the woman insisted that Rosa pay her debt with blood. After saying that, she picked up a knife and prepared to attack child. The man quickly got down to stop her. He said that this was a child. Although they all missed their child, what had happened was in the past, she should not hurt another person. After he persuaded her, the woman finally put down her weapon. The two hugged each other and cried. At the same time, a strange car came from afar. After a wide search, the police soon found the driver's car. But when Mark rushed over, the woman and the driver were lying cold on the ground. Both were dead. Mark looked at their bodies and felt something was wrong. The staff at the scene told him that according to the investigation, she probably suddenly had a mental illness. She stabbed her boyfriend to death before slitting her own throat. Fortunately, Rosa's son was fine. He was being taken by ambulance for examination. Naya was investigating a woman's house at the moment. She seemed to hear a strange noise. Naya walked slowly towards the sound and found a bag of things inside the old refrigerator. The high-ranking officials held a meeting and said that the case should be closed. "Thank you for your hard work." Mark returned to the police station and went straight to the leader to say that this was not good. Maybe they were not the culprits. Someone was deceiving them. They could not close the case. What if there was a mistake? Seeing that Mark was about to lose control, the leader asked Naya to comfort him. Naya rushed over and said that she had found the severed arms and legs of the victims in those cases in the woman's house. When Mark saw it, he asked Naya why they had not found it before. Could it be that someone had deliberately placed it there? If the case is closed, will there be another murder in the future? Naya hugs the out-of-control Mark. Mark is silent for a moment, then turns around and leaves. Zealand, in 1985. Rosa was a child at that time. Rosa was a chestnut with twins who were also adopted, but the adoptive parents called Rosa and told her that because the twins had suffered too much, the adoptive parents decided to keep them and give them a better life. Rosa reluctantly agreed. Because of that, Rosa might be sent to another family. Time returns to the present. The senior police are under pressure from the media and the government. They are about to close this serial murder case. The killer is Rosa and his girlfriend's driver. The reason is because because of the child abuse resettlement law that Rosa advocated. Their newborn son died of pneumonia, so she took revenge on Rosa. Moreover, there were many severed limbs of the victims at the scene. This made the police even more convinced that they were the culprits. Naya was going to be transferred to the civilian division for family reasons. She took the opportunity to go to her daughter's costume party. Before leaving, she looked at the portrait of the wanted person. At this time, Mark was temporarily transferred. Although he felt that there were still many doubts about the case, the senior police decided to hold a press conference to announce the end of the case. This made him feel extremely helpless, and it was time to be transferred back. After they parted ways, he went to the airport, preparing to board the plane. But he suddenly received a text message about the case. The killer of Christine had hacked into the police system. Mark opened it, and it revealed a brutal murder 30 years ago. Mern Island, in 1987. The police chief went to Orum's house on Chestnut Farm. They called for a long time without any answer. When they entered the room, they saw the woman lying in a pool of blood. The police chief felt something was wrong, so he pulled out his weapon and looked around. The corpses, one after another, indicated that this was a brutal murder. Then he called for help. He suddenly heard a sound coming from the basement. When he went down, he saw that the cupboard was full of chestnut men. He also found a little girl hiding under the table. He walked over to comfort her, not to be afraid, and said that he was a police officer who had come to help her. Back to the present. Mark was surprised to see that there were many little chestnut men in the photo. Why was the murderer in Christine's case interested in the murder case 30 years ago? Mark knew that the psychopath was definitely not the one who killed Christine. Choosing, according to his words, meant that he was chosen by the real murderer who killed Christine. If that was true, then the current murder and Christine's case were closely related to the case 30 years ago. Mark quickly contacted his friends and said he would go to the Mern Island police station to investigate the files from that year. His friend told him that the case was handled by a police sergeant named John. All he had to do was go to him. Naya was attending her daughter's dance party. He happened to see the roasted chestnuts prepared by her daughter and her friends. They were about to share them when the teacher suddenly talked about chestnuts. Naya asked if there were many different types of chestnuts. The teacher said that chestnuts were divided into two large clusters: horse chestnuts and sweet chestnuts. The large clusters included different types of small ones. The places of growth and the shapes were different. Naya seemed to have thought of something when she heard this. She quickly left the party and went to the police station. She met Simon and asked him about Chestnut Man in Christine's case. Was it the same as the Chestnut Man in the other cases? Simon said yes, they were all horse chestnuts. Naya asked again if they were the same type. Simon said he didn't know, but when the botanist's report came in, Naya quickly called Simon out. Through Simon's investigation, the Chestnut Man in Christine's case was a horse chestnut. The ones in the following cases were all new horse chestnut clusters. In other words, the Chestnut Man in the following cases was different from the Chestnut Man in Christine's case. Simon thought that Christine might have gotten the chestnuts from somewhere else, but Naya insisted on investigating where these new horse chestnuts came from. She even suspected that Christine was still alive. Only then could there be an explanation for why her fingerprints appeared on chestnuts of a different type. Simon hesitated, then he agreed to go with Naya. Rosa was sorting clothes when she suddenly heard a strange noise. She thought it was her son, but no one answered after calling several times. Rosa went upstairs and saw a circle made of chestnuts in the middle of the floor. This familiar object brought back her dusty past. That year, her adoptive parents wanted to adopt the Linus twins. In order to live in this good family, Rosa secretly met her adoptive mother and told her that Linus Parker had done some bad things to her. Rosa's adoptive parents originally wanted to keep the two sisters, but in the end, they sent them away. They were then sent to Mern Island. Thinking of this, Rosa quickly looked for her secretary. She wanted to find out where the Linus twins were sent that year. After investigating the system, she found that in 1985, her adoptive father had raised the two sisters for 2 months. The boy's name was Parker and the girl's name was T. Rosa quickly investigated where they had gone. However, when she learned about it, she immediately collapsed. It turned out that when the two sisters were sent to Mern Island, their life was worse than hell. They were often locked in the basement and treated inhumanely. When Rosa saw this, she quickly ran to the bathroom. She wanted to calm down. She suddenly received a message saying that if she wanted to know what happened to her daughter, she should come tonight. Finally, Rosa understood the reason for everything, but for the sake of her daughter, she could only go alone. Rosa did not know if her daughter was still alive. At this time, Mark also went to the Mern Island police station. John, who was in charge of the case that year, showed Mark all the videos. He said that in the Oram family, except for the two adopted children who survived, no one was lucky enough to survive. After investigation, the police believed that Oram had killed his whole family to atone for his mistakes. He had abused his two adopted children for a long time. The police found many videos of children being abused in his house. He probably murdered the sheriff. Oram eventually died behind the farm to atone for his sins. John also said that the boy in the video begged his adoptive mother to help him stop his father, but she didn't stop him and was even the one who took the video. Mark asked John what the two children's names were. John said one was named Parker and the other was named T. Later, his niece was their classmate, but he never realized they had such a horrible past. Mark asked where they were now and if he could find them. John said he didn't know. It had been more than 30 years, but his niece would definitely have pictures of them. So they went to John's sister's house. At that time, his niece was not at home. His sister searched for a long time but could not find anyone. Mark accidentally found a covered photo on the wall. Mark walked over and slowly peeled it off and asked the woman who he was. The woman said he was Parker. This photo was taken when they graduated from school. Mark looked at the man's photo and said no way. Yes, he was Simon, who was investigating the case with them. At that time, Naya was investigating the new breed of horse chestnuts with Simon. Simon asked Naya how her daughter's masquerade was. Naya said she had left to take care of things. Simon said that Naya should make it up to her daughter later if she wanted to be a good mother. Naya asked why she said that. Simon replied that children are very precious and they need careful care from their mothers. Naya said, "Don't children need a father?" By the way, Naya asked Simon if he had seen her phone, but he did not answer her. He said that no matter what, mothers must protect their children. A father is fine, or not, but a mother must be with her child. Otherwise, she would not be fulfilling her responsibility. Naya said of course, but it depends on when the child needs her. At this time, Naya still did not know what Simon had gone through as a child. Not long after, Naya found the chestnut tree based on the clues. She picked up the chestnut on the ground and compared it with the chestnut in the case. She felt that they were identical. Moreover, there was a farm not far away. Naya decided to go check it out. When she approached the farm, it seemed that no one was there. Simon was standing behind her, still hesitating whether to attack her or not. When Naya opened the door, she carefully put on high alert. Simon outside also checked to see if there was anyone around. Then he quietly closed the door. After entering, Naya discovered that there was a surveillance device here. There were also documents about recent cases posted on the wall. It was obvious that this was the killer's residence. She quickly told Simon to call for backup, but he didn't bother pretending anymore. He told her his identity and what he had done. Naya couldn't believe it. She aimed at Simon and asked him to hand over the weapon. Simon said he left the gun in the car and didn't bring it here. At this time, Mark was looking for the place where Simon was most likely to go. He suddenly remembered the crime scene 30 years ago, which seemed to be a chestnut farm. Mark quickly took out the photo and examined it carefully. On it was the farm Naya had just visited. Mark decided to check it. Rosa's husband and son also went to see the police in charge and said that Rosa's phone was turned off. They couldn't contact her. They hoped the police would quickly investigate. The death of his daughter was enough to make him depressed and in pain all year round. The disappearance of his wife made the man fall into hell. At this time, Rosa came here, as directed by Simon, and asked if he was Parker. Simon said yes. Then, he forced her into the room. Rosa thought her daughter was in the house, so she quickly entered. Simon looked at Rosa, still calling her daughter, and he sarcastically thought of her current status as a minister. She stood on a high platform, smiling and fighting for children. But when she was young, she was the one who pushed him and his sister into hell. Rosa also admitted that she lied that year, but she was still young, so she didn't realize what she was doing. Simon said she finally admitted it. Then he told Rosa to go to the living room to see. At this time, Naya was being dazzled inside. Simon told Rosa to sit down. He expressed regret that his sister couldn't come. Simon then told Rosa to be a chestnut like when she was little, but Rosa loudly asked where her daughter was. Simon said she'd better not ruin his mood. Rosa had to let him calm down. By chance, a chestnut fell to the ground. Simon was about to bend down to pick it up. Rosa was about to hit him, but Simon was faster than her. When Rosa woke up, she found herself dazzled. Simon was about to cut off her hand. When Simon sawed half of it, he looked through the camera and saw a car coming outside. Mark's voice also rang out immediately. When Mark walked in, Naya was struggling in the bathtub to remind him. When Mark walked in, he saw Rosa lying on the table. Simon, who was hiding behind, immediately attacked him. Mark was soon beaten to the point that he could not get up. Mark said he had informed the others, so Simon could not escape. But what greeted Mark was Simon's vicious kicks. How far was the local police? It took them about 10 minutes to get there. Naya also took the opportunity to cut tape. Simon started pouring oil all over the room. Mark said that no matter what Rosa did to Simon that year, she was just a child. Simon replied that it was all her fault. He had no idea what had happened. Obviously, the childhood experience was an indelible trauma in Simon's life. After Simon left, Naya quickly jumped out the window. She ran to the car to get a weapon. Simon suddenly hit Naya. Mark woke Rosa up. They saw Simon dragging Naya through the surveillance camera. Moreover, the whole room was law. Simon walked to the door and lit a fire. The fire immediately spread throughout the room, and when the fire was about to reach Mark's room, Mark used Simon's electric saw to cut off the window bar. At the last moment, Mark escaped with Rosa. Mark told Rosa to hold her injured wrist. He took a shortcut to chase Simon. Simon took Naya with him. Simon knew that Naya was a good mother. Naya's daughter also needed a mother, so he didn't know how to handle her for the time being. Naya suddenly attacked Simon when he wasn't paying attention, but in the end, she still didn't fight back. When Simon was about to attack Naya, Mark blocked him from the front. At the same time, Simon received a call from Mark. Mark thanked Simon for helping them get out with the chainsaw. When Simon realized that Rosa wasn't dead, he drove straight towards Mark. Finally, Mark pulled the injured Naya out of the car. Simon flew out of the car window and fell into a nearby dry tree. Mark asked Simon if Christine was still alive, but Simon didn't answer. He died right after that. Just then, Simon's phone rang. It was his sister. When the woman heard the police siren on the other end, she quickly took out the SIM card and broke it. The police later learned that the woman was Simon's sister, T. Through investigation, they quickly located her, but they were not sure if Christine was still alive, so they had to send someone pretending to be a maintenance worker to check. Mark quickly went to ask her if Christine was still alive. The woman struggled for a while and said she tried her best. Then Mark and Naya entered the house. Rosa and her husband stood outside. Her heart was in torment. For a year, she thought her daughter was dead. Recently, she suddenly had a glimmer of hope, but she did not know if it was hope or despair. Fortunately, Christine, who had been missing last year, was finally returned to her family. The movie ended here. Goodbye, and see you again.